Yeah, let's do the first one. Like, if how to kind of make yourself a wanted player regardless of what circumstance you're in. A wanted player meaning on another team or at a higher level or someone who's watching you.
Yeah.
How can you make them think, okay, this is a guy that I would still want? Because instead of just being a crybaby and everything sucks and woe is me, it's like, what are the things? Like, how about some strategies here of what we can do? So I wrote a few things down, and then you can kind of just take it however
Yeah.
you like. Um, so first thing I wrote down was kind of like, what does the team need that you're currently on? So
Yeah,
like, what?
so that's a good. Let's go right
Okay,
there. So, what does a team need? Now, you look at this in a lot of different ways, right? But one of the ways you can look at is what does your team need today? Like, what does your team need in this situation? So, you could be, let's say, a really maybe whatever team that you are. Maybe you're a high scoring team and you're getting shut down. So maybe it is you need, maybe guys are bullying your team a little bit, and you just need someone to step up. So that's like a team need. That shows a lot of character. It shows, okay, this guy understands the game, right? It also means um, who you're on a line with, right, or D partnered with. Could be, if you're playing with two really offensive players, maybe you can chip in that way. But like, what does that line need? What does that team need from you? But of course, you got to look at your skill set and be who you are, right? So,
well, can I just pause you for a sec there?
well, of course you
Yeah,
can, Eric.
because this is another thing too. Like, you got to look, you got to look within your skill set, yes, but then there's also something to be said for when guys step outside what they normally do to help the team too. So we've talked about this before, where it's like, just because you score a goal, you can block a shot, right? Or just because you're the skill guy doesn't mean that you can never finish a hit, etc. So it's like, I don't want that to be confused with not doing something that maybe you're a little uncomfortable doing, right? So there's a difference between know your skill set, know where your strengths are, but then sometimes it's like calling for something that maybe isn't something you normally do, but you just being willing to go and do it anyways because that's what the team needs kind of right now. Because like there's, I know, I'm sorry, I know I'm interrupting your train of thought. Because there's this idea of like everyone always talks about momentum, like oh, now they have the momentum, they're buzzing all over and whatever. And there's a lot of different things that can create that. And I feel like that's kind of a good way or a good question to ask yourself is like, how can I be the guy that creates momentum? It's like, what could that be? That could be a really good forechecking shift. That could be a really good penalty kill. That could be shot blocks. That could be driving the net really hard and snowing the goalie and causing a stir in front of the net. There's so many different ways that you can be the guy to create the momentum. And I feel like that's a good question that you can kind of frame to yourself. Like, at any point in a game, if things are not going well, or if it's been a 3 game slide, or you're in a slump or whatever, it's like, how can I create some momentum? Like, what is the thing that would fill that gap right now? And then you can kind of identify it that way. So
Yeah,
that was kind of my 2 cents
yeah.
on that
Well,
point.
it's a good 2 cents.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also like being like when you're looking at, like, one of the things I was thinking about here, because I'm trying to keep it a little bit for youth hockey as well, right? So because it's a lot easier for us to talk about junior and up, where you can throw a huge hit. Well, what if you're playing Pee Wee, right? What if you're playing Bantam? But so, like, let's say you're playing for like a smaller center, like a Windsor, Sarnia, Oshawa, something like that, and you're playing a big Toronto team or a big Detroit team. Well, as we talked about it several times, you could be playing a team that it's just you are outclassed, like just sheer numbers, tough game, tough game. So if I'm like the top scorer for Windsor or Oshawa, and I'm used to getting goals, and when I play against a center roughly the same size, it's like, okay, I'm a really offensive player. One of the things you can look at is, like, if you're playing like a top Toronto team now, is like, of course you still want to put your goals in, but maybe you have a different challenge, right? Maybe it's not so much, because you're going in there and it's like that's a big challenge to beat the Toronto Marlies or the Toronto Junior Canadians or whoever it is. So maybe your philosophy changes a little bit. Like, you're going to throw that offensive flair on there, but maybe your challenge now is to really make life miserable for the top, because you're probably going to play against a top line. So maybe your new goal is to really be miserable against that top line or against those top D, so that they're playing, it's like, it's instead of a 8-0 game or an 8-1 or 8-2 game, that gap is closed to 3-2, or maybe you even win because you've done a job of frustrating the other team. That's another thing of what does your team need. So, and what it shows is that you're looking at not so much a personal goals, even though that's you need to have them. But what it's shown is that you are willing to do what it takes for your team. So I might sacrifice, blowing the zone to get a puck. I might sacrifice that to get a puck, and I'll be more aware of my defensive zone and staying on these top guys and just making their life freaking miserable.
Yeah, I love that. So we had one. I remember one player, exact kind of situation. He's a defenseman, and every time he would play top AAA teams, I remember because he would come in here to work out. He'd be like, "Yeah, we play these guys this weekend. I can't wait to get in this guy's
Yeah, yeah,
face. I can't like he
yeah,
would. That's just how he talked
yeah,
about it, and that's a really good strategy that I feel like a lot of people may not have thought of before, particularly if it's that dynamic of a weak team versus a way better team. But it could be for any matchup, but particularly in that dynamic where it's like, okay, maybe I'm not going to get to be as offensive today because they're just better. That's a great thing. Go chase down their top guy, go head to head with their top guy, and be a pain in his ass the whole game. That's a really great thing you can do for team reasons, but then even just for purely selfish reasons, because players know who the best players are. Probably like from the U15 age up, the guys know like which good players are on which teams and like who's probably going to get drafted high versus not, and they all talk about it, and everybody knows. So if you're in that situation, and even younger, I'm sure it's true too. But if you're in that situation and you know who the good guys and you know there's scouts at this game or at this tournament and people are going to be watching, and you know that that is a guy that people are going to be watching, then what better thing to do than be next to that guy all game? You know? So you rally off of that guy's momentum. Like that guy's creating some buzz and there's people there watching. Then maybe if you make 3 good plays that game on that guy, it's like, oh wow, like he just stopped a really good player. Or oh wow, he just got around a really good player. And now all of a sudden you're getting a little bit of looks just because there's somebody else there. As opposed to you're cowering to the team that's just way better, because that is an easy mindset to go into with like, yeah, we're gonna get smacked, and you're almost embarrassed and want to hide because of that humiliation factor, which for sure is real. And like I remember being there. It's like you're gonna walk in, I know we're getting smacked. This is embarrassing. I just want to hide my name because it's embarrassing. But as a like when the scouts watch, they don't actually care about that. They're watching to see who can play. They don't care about what the score is. So
yeah.
that's a good thing. That's a good strategy, I
Yeah,
think.
to your point, and that's I was going to say something along those lines later. Is like so if you were playing in the Western Hockey League last year or the OHL, who was a high pick last year in the OHL? Colby Barlow. He was the first OHL guy player picked. Okay, Colby Barlow. Okay, so let's go say that. So you know that Colby. Some girls are waving at us here again. God, if I don't hear that 20 times a day. So okay, so you're playing, and you know the hype the hype is he's going to be a top 10 pick. That's what it was last year, Colby Barlow. So if you're playing the Owen Sound attack, if you're even not on the radar anywhere, you're just a schlep playing, right? You're just a guy playing, and no one even knows your name. If you're every scout in the building is there to watch him. Every scout in the building is there to watch him fail to ski and talk about how great he is. And if you're the guy that shuts him down and gets in his face, lays a little body on him, after a whistle, you maybe get in a shot, try to get him off his game. Even if he outplays you, if you're on the ice with him for 10 or 15 shifts or 12 or whatever, or 3, and every time you're on the ice with him, you're a problem for him, well, they're all looking at Barlow, but they also have seen your name. And that's how you become a little bit more wanted and noticed, right? So, like, as you said, don't cower to that. Stand the test, right? Like show up that game and be in his face, because that guy will be the problem. And now if you're a problem for him, you've just given yourself a name. Now, if you go and do that every night, then all of a sudden you become a guy that, the next night you're playing against London and there's Bonk, or let's say he's another first rounder. You're in his face every night. You're finishing your checks on him. You're frustrating him. You're getting on the pucks. And people notice, okay, this Bonk guy, how did he play? He's like, well, this Eric guy was all over him all night. Like, that's 3 games now. I saw him against Owen Sound, this guy, this team. He's like, stands up, man. So that gives you a quality, even though you might not get on the score sheet. You might not, but your name gets out there and you become wanted.
Yeah, and it's kind of centering back to what we were talking about there is like, what does the team need? It's like you're identifying that guy's a problem. I'm going to go do something about that guy. And now I'm next to that guy the whole time. So for team reasons, you are now, for selfish reasons, standing out for yourself as an individual.
So, or you could let him play and be a star. You can do that, and they are stars. They're stars for a reason. But that's what I would say is to my guys is like, why do you want let someone else be the star? Take some of the like all the lights on him. Why don't you take some? Do something somehow to get in their grill to get this
And to
limelight.
just to make sure we're being realistic about this, it's like if you're going up against McDavid when he plays for the Erie Otters, like he's gonna score his goals, man. There's nothing you're gonna do. But all it takes is a couple good plays. You know, it just takes stopping him once. It just takes like that second effort to get a turnover once. It just takes a good finish check on him once. So he can still dominate the game, but all you need is your 2, 3, 4, 5 good moments being on that guy, and he can still be a star and all that. But now you've created some room for you, for some people to take a look at you,
Yeah,
right?
and if
Which I
you
think
made
is
his
great.
game a lot harder to play,
Yeah,
then you're noticeable.
and notice too, like we weren't very specific about how exactly to go about doing that because it could be an offensive thing. It could be a defensive thing. It could be like if it's a really like a Arbor Jack guy, like there's a good example. It's like you want to go against that guy every game? No. But if you're the guy that sticks his nose in there and you end up getting to the net twice when he's on the ice, it's like,
Or you
okay,
make him get 3 4 penalties against you because
right.
he's pissed at you because you're nothing but a pain in his ass.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
gives you a swat
Yeah,
in the back of the head, and or takes a 4 minute because he's had enough of your little shit.
yeah,
Then you become valuable.
exactly.